Hello and welcome to this brief discussion that I want us to have concerning your essay 1, which you are supposed to submit on the 17th of March. That is the electronic copy. There will be a Turnitin link on the course website where you submit the electronic copy, which checks if you haven't copied other people's work and all those things. Now, but what I want to do today is to talk about the content of the essay itself. Now, you are required to search an electronic version of an article published from 1 January 2019 up to the present. Now, the article must be a newspaper article. Please don't use journal articles, you will get a 0. Newspaper article or popular financial press. This could include your magazines, business magazines and other things. Okay, please don't use journal articles. I repeat, you will get a 0. You must follow instructions, and these articles must be speaking to any country of your choice. You only need one article. Actually, you don't need many of them, just one, and then you apply your economic theory to it. There's something I forgot to change in the question anyway. I'll correct that. I wasn't supposed to introduce artificial intelligence and robots here. Okay, I made a big mistake. All right, anyway. So what you're supposed to do with this article, you are to apply economic theory that you have looked at so far, and much of what is required in this question relates to chapter 3 and perhaps chapter 4, which you are starting on Monday. Okay, now here are the things you are required to do. You should be able to look at determinants of price changes in that particular article and the effects on equilibrium prices. Do equilibrium prices rise or fall? Do they remain the same? You should be able to do that using the content that is in your article. Does equilibrium quantity increase or decrease? This last part you may or you may not deal with it because you wouldn't have done chapter 4 by then, and in many cases the articles that you will be looking at may not speak to these issues. Okay, now you are to write an essay between 800 and 1000 words, so you have to be economic with your explanations. You don't have to waffle. You must extract relevant information, and you must use diagrams to demonstrate that you understand the workings of economic theory, and then you read the rest. So now what I want to do is to try by all means to speak to this particular issue of price changes and equilibrium prices and equilibrium quantity and so forth using a newspaper article that I got. Now, as you know, there is an outbreak of this natural disaster, coronavirus, and in this case, I have an article which talks about the effect of this virus on meat prices. Some meat prices have gone up, others have gone down because of that. Okay, so now the article now says pork prices continue to rise pork prices continue to rise while chicken prices weaken. And this here is the graph illustrating what is actually going on. Let me try to reduce the maybe to 150 so you can see. So this is the pork price. It has been rising, and this is chicken price. You can see it has been stable, and then it started falling now. And this is the trend in the output for pork. It rose slightly, then it started declining, and then sharply in 2019 and into 2020. And then you can see also imports. These are imports of pork from overseas. They've been increasing sharply from 2019 and 2020, reflecting the need to fill in this gap here in domestic supply. Okay, now let's read the article using those concepts, changes in prices, equilibrium, and other things. Those are the concepts you are using to read the article. It has been a tale of two myths. The impact of the coronavirus outbreak has sent chicken prices lower, which means chicken prices have fallen while pork prices have risen. Okay, so these are two things that we are being told. Here we are being told that equilibrium prices for chicken fell while equilibrium prices for pork rose. Now, what are the forces driving those dynamics in the prices? Now, we are told now both meats became more expensive in 2019 after the African swine fever, right? A deadly disease affecting pigs. So it was a natural disaster. Do you see that? A deadly disease. That's a natural disaster affecting the supply of pork, dramatically reducing the country's head and pork. But this year chicken prices have fallen sharply. Now, here is the problem. The reason why pork prices rose is because of a shock in the production of pork. And this shock was due to a natural disaster, which was a disease outbreak that affected pigs. But now, in terms of chicken, prices have fallen sharply, not just falling a little bit, they have fallen sharply. But the reason for their falling is that there is weak demand for restaurant for restaurant hangouts and other things that people usually do during their leisure time, socializing with their friends, celebrating, for example, the New Year in China. You remember the New Year in China coincided with the outbreak of the coronavirus. And so from the TV, if you are watching news, you see that restaurants were empty and all that stuff. But you see those people running the restaurants, they had already planned for the New Year. They had slaughtered their chicken and many other things in preparation for this major surge in demand during the New Year celebrations. And then suddenly another natural disaster, a health crisis broke out, and this weakened restaurant demand. So what you see is that pork became more expensive because of something that affected the supply curve. Okay, so here what happened is that there was a reduction in supply. So if I'm thinking in terms of a graph, this is a leftward shift in the supply curve, right? That's what is going to happen. Whereas here, because of weakened demand, you have a reduction in demand, which is an inward shift in the demand curve. Okay, do you see that I am thinking with my economic concepts as I read the article? And the cause here is a natural disaster affecting consumption, right? Whereas there it was a natural disaster affecting, let me just push that up, affecting production. Do you see that? So there are two natural disasters, but they are affecting different things. One is affecting consumption, one is affecting production. So the one affecting consumption works its effect through the demand curve. The one that affects production works its effect through the supply curve. Okay, so then they say the price drop, this price drop in chicken put further pressure on already negative poultry producer margins. Okay, now when you say they are negative producer margins, yeah, essentially saying that the price at which they were selling their poultry was less than the marginal cost at which they were producing the chicken. Essentially, that's what is happening. So then the markups above costs tended to be negative. Okay, now what is happening here is that there is a race to the bottom, that is, there are negative price expectations among suppliers. So all of them are trying to offload their stocks of chicken before prices even go further down. So as they do that, at once there is an oversupply of chicken in the market. The result is that it pushes prices even further down to further lower levels. That is what is happening in this article. Okay, then here they say, but the story for pork is quite different. What you see in the story of pork is that government released some reserves last year, which obviously had the effect of increasing supply. Do you see that? But temporarily. But now after that, after those reserves taken out, then prices started to rise very slowly. Okay, but now here is the issue. The natural disaster which we said affected demand is also affecting supply in some way. It is affecting supply through raising transaction costs of delivering pork to the market because of these lockdowns and blockages and the time wasted when you are being screened and tested for coronavirus infection and all those things. It means that where, for example, you were supposed to take your supply of chicken in 1 hour to the market, it might take you a couple of days. So now this is the effect of reducing the responsiveness of supply. Okay, so that is the elasticity of supply here is nearly approaching zero because of this particular problem which is arising. Okay, this is very interesting. Okay, this is very interesting. So you can continue with all the other things they're talking about. People have also started importing pork from outside, which means now our total supply of pork, which we can call the big Q, is made up of supply from the domestic market plus supply from foreign markets. Okay, so now the influx of imports from other countries will have the effect of increasing the supply of pork over time, and that will have the effect of reducing the equilibrium price from where it is. So now from this information I already have enough to do a lot of analysis and demonstration and so forth and so forth. Okay, but now because of time I will not do many things. I will illustrate, for example, in the case of chicken, just to show you what you might do with this. So this is my quantity, so this is price, this is quantity, this is my demand curve, this is my supply curve. So this is called the supply curve, this is called the demand curve. Okay, if I were to join these with a line, which we can make a dotted line anyway, if you like, we can do that. Let's make it a dotted line. So now this is our equilibrium price, which is I shall call PE. Obviously not Port Elizabeth. Then this is equilibrium quantity, which is I shall call QE. Okay. Now what I'm analyzing the chicken case here. So what they are saying is, we have had a reduction in demand because of the health crisis that is evolving currently. Now, a reduction in demand is a shift in the demand curve. So that means at all prices, you have less being demanded. So your demand curve shifts inwards like this. Let's call this point D, this curve D1. Okay. Now, if you look at this, for example, our original price level or price was PE. Now our new price is this one. To save time, I will not make it dotted. I will just call it P1. Okay. So your demand has decreased. Now, what is going to happen with your demand having decreased? At the same price PE, people are demanding this here, this quantity here, the quantity consistent with this point here, while suppliers are supplying QE. So you see, we have a lot of chicken in the market, but people are only demanding this much. So this has the effect of putting a downward pressure on prices. And so what you have is, we have moved in this direction. Now price comes down to this direction, and this becomes the equilibrium. We are now settling at a lower price level, but also notice what is happening. Our quantity has also decreased. You see that we have come to a lower quantity. But this is not the only issue. From what we read, we were told that the quantity of chicken, yes, also the equilibrium quantity of chicken has increased sharply because of negative expectations that suppliers have. So what they have done is they have gone ahead to slaughter their chicken to try and beat the market, try and sell everything they have before prices fall even further. So what they have done is they have caused a huge increase in the supply of chicken in the market. Okay, and so you have something like this. I want my graph to be clean. Let me try to put it in a different place. And so you have now S1. Okay, so now what you see is we have two forces moving in different directions. We have an increase in the supply of chicken in the market while there is a decrease in demand. So that has the effect of even further causing prices to fall, and we end up being at P2. Okay, so now we are at P2. So what you see is that our price started at PE and now it has fallen to all the way to P2. The only thing we are not sure of is whether the quantity we end up having in this market will be closer to QE, bigger than QE, or somewhere below QE, because when both supply and demand decrease, we know of a truth that prices will decrease, but we actually can't predict what will happen to the equilibrium quantity and so forth. So these are some of the things that you can do with this. You can do the same graph for pork, but it will be different because you were told that because of these blockages they have reduced the supply response, which means your supply curve for pork must be a very steep curve, which shows that supply is not very responsive and so forth. These are just different things that you can do. There's a lot you can analyze very carefully as you read through the text and so forth. But generally what I've done here is to help you see what is going on. And as I read each paragraph, I was identifying what is happening and showing whether it affects supply or whether it affects demand. And you can broadly see the factors are isolated here, that they all either are determinants of supply or determinants of demand, and when they change, your demand and supply model changes. That is, the equilibrium moves to a different position. Either price goes up or down, and quantity might go up or down, and so depending on the relative movements of your demand and supply curves. These are the things you will be doing. So then I can easily compose my essay and argue, define all my concepts, then illustrate using a graph what is happening in the story that is before me, and then draw my conclusions and so forth. That's essentially what you should be able to do.